Western Hills Airport. This is an aerial view facing the west of the old airport, showing the end of Coral Gables Avenue and Pyrick Avenue. This is a picture working underneath the Stinson of Jimmy Goodwin after he lost a tail wheel. Jimmy Goodwin in the left foreground, Bill Kiffmeyer in the right foreground, Howard Geiger beneath the rudder. I don't know the other gentleman. Publicity shot of the Cincinnati Parachute Club showing Howard in the cockpit of old 6974 and an unidentified jumper. Some of you may know some of these fellows. I'm sorry, I don't know them all. Kenny Rice in front of his monocoupe. It's the monocoupe that eventually wound up in the tragic death of Charlie Wentz and Walter Lovely, sitting next to the old hangar on the south side of the hangar at Old Western Hills. A view, and I believe we took this from the tower, the old tower at the airport, showing the apron and some of the airplanes. Some of the cars will bring back nostalgia. This is a view of the Cincinnati Parachute Club in about 1940. On the left, Arnold Wilson, Bob Brown, Howard Geiger, Bob Keefus, Tony Renee, Quentin Connor, Shipwreck Kelly, and Kenny Rice on the left. On the right, kneeling is Bill Kane and Claude Brown. A view from 6974, looking to the west-northwest toward the intersection of Bridgetown Road and Ebenezer Road. Again, an almost overhead view of the hangar area. You can see the road on the right leading down to the gun club, which is on the upper edge of the picture. Another view taken from west looking toward the east. A view of the runway. This is the north-south, taken from the north end, looking toward the old Tressler farm. East-west runway, looking toward the east. The old barn, I'm sure we all remember the old barn sitting out on the peak of the hill on the east end of the runway. Excuse me. Excuse me. There she is. 6974, beautiful Waco of Howard Geiger, the Waco 10, powered by an OX-5. The airplane, incidentally, that I took my first airplane ride in, had my first spin in. I have a very fond recollection of this airplane. Again, a picture of old 6974 with the tower in the background and the old hangar. Most of all of these pictures date from approximately 37 to 41, according to Howard. Picture of old 6974. In the background, a picture of the Waco cabin that was owned by the Cincinnati Albatross Birdman Club, which I believe was one of the oldest airplane clubs in the country, one of the first. Another picture of the J3. I believe Bill Fowler's Swallow on the right, and maybe a Traveler in the background. I'm sorry I don't know these, and Howard isn't here. Howard, can you help us on these? Again, I believe this is the J3. And the old parking lot at the airport. This is looking almost due north. You can see the tower on the left side. This was Howard's. Howard, you can tell us about this one. Picture of Kenny's Monocoop. I believe this was originally a Veely Monocoop, and I believe it was changed to a LeBlanc. Kenny, you can probably fill us in on that. A picture of Howard Geiger on the left, Bob Brown in the jumpsuit with the chutes on, and Kenny Rice sitting on the stabilizer of the J3, I believe it was. Again, looking south. There's the, I don't know if that's the J2 or the J3. I guess that's the J3. On these prints, I wish you would make it, please. I do not know the history of all these airplanes. If you have anything to add to the program, please speak up. An aerial shot of the Cub, and I believe from the looks of the trailing edge off to the left, it looks like this may have been taken from Kenny's International. My recollection says it had a scallop trailing edge because of the wire trailing edge being pulled tight by the fabric. There's a picture of the International. I believe this was Kenny Rice's. I know it was Kenny's when I had my ride in it. I was a youngster at that time. Another picture of the International. Kenny Rice standing next to his Pride and Joy. It had Oxford something on the side. I don't know if it was Oxford Hardware, but he was advertising for somebody. Tell us about it, Kenny. Oh yes, a beautiful picture of 6974 flying over Price Hill. In the lower left-hand picture of the screen is Western Hills High School. This was the airplane in its original factory finish. Howard Geiger and a parachute jumper, and we do not know the identity of this jumper. If anybody recognizes him, why, we'd appreciate it. Again, old 6974 in the background. Again, a picture 6974 during one of the Sunday jumping periods. Sorry we duplicated this print, but I enjoy watching her again. Very beautiful and very touching for me to see this. pictures are repeated. We're sorry about that. Another picture of 6974. Identity of the people are unknown. Some of the pictures have been reproduced by Hans Dam, and a lot of these are Hans's reproductions from very small pictures taken from different picture albums. Most of these are the property of Howard Geiger, and they were reproduced by Hans Dam, and he did a very good job. Again, a repeat picture of 6974 and the old cabin Waco, the Albatross Birdman. Picture of 6974, and I believe it's Kenny Rice standing on the left. I'm not certain of that either, but I think it's Kenny. Taylor Craft, and I believe this was Howard's. Howard, again, you might reiterate, give us a rundown on this airplane. Oh, the twosome. This duo was known throughout Price Hill as the Terrible Twosome. Howard Geiger on the left, Charlie Rentz on the right. This is a picture showing from the left Charlie Rentz, Howard Geiger, Peggy Rentz, and off to the right is Bobby Rentz. I believe Bobby was supposed to be here this evening. Also his sons. Whether they're going to make it or not, I don't know. This was the people who ran the airport. Like another picture of 6974 with Kenny's got the lid off doing something. The man with the back to us is the head of the Cincinnati Triangle Parachute Club, Carl Nolke, and Bob Brown in the coveralls. The youngsters on the right again are unidentifiable. Carl Nolke and Bob Brown being members of the Cincinnati Parachute Club along with Kenny Rice, some of the charter members of the club. Bob Brown's still around. He lives in, he's my brother, lives in Orlando, Florida. This is a picture of Bob Brown coming down on an evening, smooth sailing we call this. This was a publicity shot taken by Carl Getz, the club photographer, and he won national honors with this photograph. Again, the picture was titled Smooth Sailing. An unidentified jumper. If you notice, he's upside down with his feet in the air. I'm sure this jumper wants to remain anonymous. We have several ideas of who it might be, but we're not going to say. But he landed pretty much on his head. The club had a fantastic record in over 1,250 jumps without ever having a serious injury, the most serious injury being a turned ankle. I was fortunate enough to witness most of those jumps myself. Publicity picture by the Cincinnati Parachute Club. Howard's Waco was off to the right. running at full throttle to inflate the chute. In the harness is Tony Renee. White coveralls is Claude Brown, and it's either Bob Brown or myself, holding on to Tony. The young lady in the foreground taking the picture is unidentified. Publicity shots taken for the Triangle Parachute Company, who was trying to make their mark at this time. These pictures all date around 1941. Picture of the tower. This was our tower at Western Hills. Slightly different than the towers of today, which are control towers. It's quite a landmark. Picture of Jimmy Goodwin in his bat wings. The lady on the left is here this evening. That's Dottie Brown. The gentleman in the white coveralls is Ed Petrick, a member of the Cincinnati Parachute Club, and the famous Jimmy Goodwin with his bat wings. Jimmy was one of the pioneers in the bat wing movement. I think the original Batman was a gentleman named Elmo Bannister, and this was in the 30s. This picture taken in the early 40s. Again, the same day. On the left, Ed Petrick, Bill Cleary, myself, Russ Brown, Jimmy Goodwin, Dottie Brown, and an unidentified gentleman on the right. Jimmy was tragically killed in his aerobatic airplane just weeks after these pictures were taken in Richmond, Virginia. Again, a publicity shot for the Cincinnati the Triangle Parachute Company. Howard in 6974, and I think it's either Tommy Boyd or Billy Baird getting into the airplane prior to takeoff. I may be wrong on that identification, but as close as we could figure, it's either Billy Baird or Tommy Boyd. A picture that Quentin will remember. Jumper actually landed on the ground, and the wind blew the canopy over into the trees, and we didn't want to tear the canopy, so we were very delicately being removed by the club member. That's Quentin hanging up there on the right. You remember that, don't you, Quentin? Keefus in the white. The other two gentlemen are Mr. Carl Moke and Bill Kane. A picture of Bob Keefus in front of either a UMF or a UPF-7 Waco. I don't know where this was taken, but this was one of the first jumps that Bob ever made wearing a ham radio on his chest. This was taken at an air show somewhere here in Ohio. I think it was either Miami to Hamilton or somewhere around there. Again, Kenny standing at the front of his monocoque. Getting back to the parachute jump picture, Bob was one of the first jumpers in the world to actually make a premeditated parachute jump wearing a radio, and he actually talked to us on the ground during his free fall and also during his parachute descent. Again, another shot of Kenny's monocoque. This is the aircraft that was tragically involved in the accident that took the life of Charlie Rentz and Walter Ludwig. This is a picture of what was left from that tragic crash that a lot of us remember. Anybody can help with any information on any of these pictures, we'd appreciate if you'd speak up, and we'll try and get that information on the tape. I do not know the total history of all these pictures. However, I know some. Anybody can add anything, why we would love to have it. Again, a picture of Howard and his cub. And again, some of these pictures are repeated. I don't know who owns the Model A coupe in the background. Maybe one of you gentlemen remember it. Again, an early picture of the Cincinnati Parachute Club in the rear row. From the left, Kenny Rice, Carl Nolke, Bob Keefus, Tony Renee, Claude Brown, Arnold Wilson, and Shipwreck Kelly. Their front row, unidentified. Second man is Quentin Honard. I think Bill Kane, unidentified, Jimmy Goodwin, and I think Tommy Boyd on the end. The gentleman in coveralls was tragically killed in the paratroops during a Normandy invasion, and that was Shipwreck Kelly, a member of the Cincinnati Parachute Club. The airplane in the background was Jimmy Goodwin Stinson, I believe. I believe this is the nucleus of the start of the old Parachute Club. I'm not certain. Howard and his lovely wife Laura during this was about 1941, I believe, while Howard was still running the airport. Another publicity picture of the club, Parachute Club, was Howard in the cockpit of 6974 and the young, handsome Eddie Costello posed on the wing. I believe Eddie's here this evening. Took the two handsome guys in the club and put them in a publicity picture, Howard and Eddie. Picture 6974. The gentleman on the ground with his back to us, I believe, is Bill Clary. Howard is in the cockpit. The jumper's unidentified. Western Hills Airport, the war came along and Western Airport more or less became defunct. I believe it was in 1944 when the hangar was demolished and taken to Oxford, Ohio by Mr. Wedekind, who set it up there for the University of Miami pilot training program, I believe, that was going on at the university at that time. This was when they were taking the hangar down and moving it to Oxford, Ohio, where the hangar still stands, by the way. This is all that's left of Howard and Charlie's shop that was on the north side of the hangar. After the hangar was removed, why the derelict shop was left standing for a short time. The airport was resurrected after World War II. I believe Mr. Al Weinberg reopened the airport after World War II, and it was open for some time. 6974, in 1973, the aircraft was resurrected by John Hatz in, I think in Wisconsin or Minnesota, rebuilt to flying condition, This is John Hatz on the left, Cincinnati Bill Schwinn on the right, and this is a picture of Howard's old 6974 in her new colors of red fuselage and silver wings. Tragically, both of these gentlemen are now deceased. The airplane is still owned by John Hatz's son. Picture of the old Curtiss Pusher with his 3-cylinder Zeekley on it. At the time I rode in the airplane, it was owned by Bob Y. It had been owned by Howard and several other gentlemen during its stay at Western Hills. I believe this was one of Howard's first airplanes. Howard, you can comment on that. I want to apologize for all the Glenway Avenue signs on here. Howard Geiger, again in his chute, standing next to his airplane. We put this film together in a very short period of time. We apologize for the quality of the film. It could have been a lot better, but we were a very short period of time. We got the pictures from Howard. Most of these stills are the property of Howard Geiger. Together with Hans Dam, they put most of these pictures together. Again, a picture of, I believe it's Howard's old Studebaker on the right, and his airplane in the background. I think that's Howard standing there. Again, this is amateur produced, and we apologize for some of the poor photography. We got the best quality we could out of what we had. Another one of the parachute jumpers coming down. This jumper is unidentifiable. If any of the gentlemen can identify him, pretty hard to figure out. Very beautiful picture of the triangle chute. You can really see the outline of the triangle here with the 2 steering lobes in the front and the huge tail in the back. Again, a picture, not certain, but I think this is Claude Brown. Another repeat picture of Howard and his Cub. And again, somebody identified this pretty Model A Ford coupe in the background. Taking on the ramp in front of the hangar. (6974). Coming in the door right now is Howard Geiger, so maybe Howard can, this is a picture of his beautiful Waka, and maybe Howard can make some comments here. I was asking him to do them live, but he just got here. He can comment on some of these last ones anyway. Hello, Howard. This is a barnstorming picture, isn't it? One of the old pictures of one of your barnstorming trips?
That's one of them.
Shows the parachute packing table on the left. And this was a portable table we used to string between the bumpers of 2 cars and pack the chutes right on the field.
I don't recognize just which one of those barnstorming trips it was, but we can tell by the old automobiles it was still in the 30s. And
yeah, this had to be in the late 30s.
Yes.
36, 37.
Yes.
There's a picture again from 6974, looking toward the intersection of Ebenezer and Bridgetown Road. We're actually flying right over the center of the airport, so to speak. Some of these are repeat pictures, as I said before. Some of them taken from the small pictures of Howard's, and other ones are the reproductions of Hans Dam. Another picture gives you an outline of the beautiful triangle chute. And this, again, the jumper's unidentified. As close as I can figure, this was Bob Y., but I'm not certain. I did take a magnifying glass and try and determine who some of these guys are. And this appeared to me to be Bob Y.
That's possible. But there's so many that we drop, we almost can't identify.
That's right.
As to the individual one.
Again, the old tower. That was quite a landmark. And I guess you used it many times coming home at night, didn't you?
Yes. This beacon was the first beacon out of Cincinnati on the direction towards Indianapolis.
Right. This is an article out of the paper that shows
Carl
Hageman on the right and Art Biddlemeyer on the left.
Left, yes.
And one of the first airplane clubs in the country was the old Cincinnati Albatross Birdman, and the Gray Ghost is there on the bottom, the old glider that they used.
Yes.
Did they start in Miami Town or someplace like that, and then graduated up to Western Hills Airport?
Yes, they...
Oh, pardon me, Howard. I want to put this in. This is a picture of the restored 6974 that was featured on the cover of the EAA Sports Aviation Magazine in May 1973 after the restoration job by John Hatz. And this is a really beautiful picture of old 6974, and I know that brings back a lot of fond memories to you, doesn't it?
It sure does. I had about 1,300 hours in this airplane from the time I bought it until the time I sold it.
That's fantastic. And it's still flying today.
And it's still flying today.
We
could.
Again, a publicity shot of the Parachute Club. Not very good, but from the left, Arnold Wilson, Bob Brown, Howard in the cockpit, Bob Keefus, Tony Renee, Quentin Honard. Got past it a little quick there, but we also had the Brown boys in there. Again, an aerial picture of, you can just see the corner of the hangar on the right side, and you can see the road going down to the gun club. Here's another publicity picture. As close as I can figure, this is a picture of Bob Klink. I may be wrong, but I think...
Louis Chex.
Louis Chex?
Yes.
This is Louis Chex. I stand corrected. Okay.
Yes.
Another picture of the airport. A nice picture of the airport. This is some film that was given to us, and we put it on tape. Do you know whose film this is, Howard? This is the one that you gave to my wife today.
Oh, I don't know. Oh, that's a Monocoop.
Yeah, that was the Monocoop. These are all, and I think this is the Swallow. These are all pictures at the airport, and we took them off of this film that you gave me today.
Yes.
These are all pictures taken at the old Western Hills Airport, and there's the Cabin Waco. Again, I don't know whether this is the trail there, the Swallow. Looked like the Swallow, didn't it?
Could be.
And not too bad a landing by someone. That's the travel. Was it?
Yeah.
Waco. What is this? A Porterfield?
That's the Porterfield.
Porterfield.
Emil Graf had that.
Emil Graf's Porterfield, right? Again, I can usually pick out the Waco by the little wheels.
Yeah.
Those little balloon tires you had on it. Again, Emil Graf's Porterfield.
I had the big wheels on there first. The wheel I lost, that's was a...
There's the Waco. That was the Waco.
Yes.
Going on with more of the stills from Western Hills Airport. These stills are the property of Mr. Al Weinberg, who is here this evening with us. And Al and Howard Geiger are both here, and they will comment on these pictures. So, Al, it's up to you and Howard to go ahead.
This is a picture of the top of the hangar with just the last part of the Western Hills, and there is a flight line of a couple of the airplanes that have been operating out of Western Hills. These were taken by Al Weinberg, and he can tell you more about these.
The picture itself was taken from the old rotating beacon tower. It's a wintertime shot from the rotating beacon tower. The field is covered with snow. The north-south is a long, thin runway, and the east-west is a wide.
This is one of the airplanes that was used with one of the barnstormers from Connersville that we often barnstormed in his father's farm, and it's an Eaglet, and Dean was one of our pilots that followed us around on our barnstorming days, and this was his airplane. It's an Eaglet. Thank you.
Municipal Airport at Connersville, Indiana. That's the Fairfield, what is now the airport. This is primary training. In the background is the Waco UPF 7. That's Al Weinberg and a friend of mine from Ohio. This is a picture of Al Weinberg in the early days. I had a lot of girl students. I wonder why. This is a picture of a Stinson I owned during the days of the Cheviot Airport. In the picture is myself and my wife, Lauren.
SR9, right?
All right. This is the Cheviot Airport at the beginning of its operation in 1945. We had the mayor, Ed Gingrich, out and offered him a ride, which he did decline.
This was after the hangar itself had been moved.
Yeah, the hangar had been moved, and we put the two T hangars in an office building and a shop. Go ahead.
I don't know which one that is.
That is a Waco. It is owned by Pop Mulberg, the operator of the Old Mount Healthy Airport. He passed away recently at the age of 84.
I believe that might be a Waco 9, I think.
I'm not sure. I think it's a standard.
Standard.
This is Foster Lane, who was the operator at the Columbus Airport for many years, and he's still alive, and that's his Waco 9. He's very proud of it.
I guess.
All right. This is my first airplane. Bought at the old Western Hills Airport. I flew it for several years. I sold it December the 7th, 1941, for $495.
That was your Traveler, correct?
Yeah, delivered to Dayton, Ohio.
$495.
Right now, it'd be worth $49,000.
At least.
That's a Waco. No, I'm sorry. That's a Traveler 2000 with a J5, 220 horsepower. I went to Indiana to buy the airplane, but the condition did not warrant bringing it back. This is a picture of my Traveler 2000, NZ6476, OX5 powered. In the background, the white building is the Western Hills Gun Club was operational before the war.
This is Al Weinberg's Traveler, and next adjacent to the cornfield that we used to land in while we were barnstorming at Connorsville at Dean Binder's field.
What year?
That was
39, 40.
about 1939 is a good guess. We're not very sure of a lot of these dates because they covered quite an area at the time of, and we didn't keep very good log books on the where we were.
Is that for self-preservation?
I don't know.
No, we just didn't have time to get to them.
Just a minute. Okay.
That's my car. That's a 1933 Oldsmobile Coupe with a rumble seat. And if anybody wants to know for sure, that is the hangar at the old Western Hills Airport.
With the shop on the side, correct?
Shop on the side, yeah. This picture is Howard Geiger on the tractor, getting set to go. Kenneth Rice leaning over, adjusting the engine. And head to the background with the hat is Eddie Costello. Somebody's going to have to help me out who the young boy sitting on the tractor with the good-looking air job. Need to be involved. Naturally, I'd pick that out right away. I don't know his name.
I would like to make a comment. The seat on this tractor, I spent several hours when I would be cutting the field and rolling it, and the seat on that thing, you never could get a comfortable enough cushion to get over the roughness of the ride that you got on that tractor. Once you got a day's work in on that, you knew you had a day's work. So the airport wasn't all just flying, it was doing the jobs that had to be done around the airport too.
That is a Fairchild KR-31. It was owned by Larry Lauberns from South Cumminsville. And that's the first engine work I ever done. I overhauled the cylinders on it with new rings and ground the valve. And it's on its test run in at that time.
Okay.
Okay, that's an identification out of one of my larger log books. I used that all during the war. And at that time I had a Class 1 and 2, which was mounted to the horsepower rating of the airplane. At the present time, I estimate I got 16,000 hours, which is a fair amount of time off the ground.
Okay, go ahead.
This is a lineup of the airplanes that were stored at Western Hills Airport in the late 30s. The early 30s. And the first one is the Swallow that was owned by Bill Fowler first and then sold to Charlie Rentz. And then the second one, I don't identify it. The third one is the Waco 10. And the fourth one is at the Travel-Air. And the
Golden Eagle.
the last one is the Golden Eagle. These were all airplanes that were stored at Western Hills and participated in the barnstorming and air shows that were put on, and in the parachute jumping with the Triangle Parachute Club and Triangle Parachute Company.
Is that taken on the ramp?
That's taken in front of the hangar on the ramp at Western Hills.
Says the shadow is from the hangar?
The shadows from the hangar, they're taken late in the afternoon because the shadow is created from the sun from the west.
I might add that in the later 30s, a successful landing of a J3 Cub, or J2 I guess it was, with a parachute was accomplished by Kenneth Rice.
Right. I have
have a picture, which I hope we'll be able to get on here, of that chute. The 52-foot chute that was designed and built by Mr. Carl Mulkey of the Cincinnati Parachute Club, and Kenny successfully dropped the Cub, I believe, on several occasions.
It was
Once at Montgomery, Alabama, I believe.
Yes, he dropped it in Florida, and I think they had 60-some drops with that chute, with that airplane.
It was quite an accomplishment. First time it was ever done in the world, to our knowledge, anyway.
Well, there's people talking about it now that it's brand new.
It's not new. We did it back in the early 40s.
That airplane was named the Black Sheep. Jimmy Goodwin named it the Black Sheep when they were.
Hello, all of you early birdmen from Western Hills Airport. I was one of you in those great days over 51 years ago. Unfortunately, I didn't hear about the reunion, or I certainly would have made every effort to get there. Fortunately, though, I did meet Howard Geiger, so he suggested I put some of my material on this tape. For the benefit of you fellows who don't recognize me 50 years later, my name is Howard Schultz, and I flew with the Cincinnati Albatross Birdmen at Western Hills. As Howard said earlier, that was one of the oldest flying clubs in the country. The Albatross Birdmen originally flew gliders, and they operated out of Mount Healthy Airport. And then when they bought that large Waco 4-place cabin plane, they moved to Western Hills because they had runways going in 2 directions, and they thought it was easier to land that plane when you had a choice of 2 runways rather than the 1 runway at Mount Healthy. Some of the names of the Albatross Birdmen which I remember are Carl Hageman, the president of the club. He was on that earlier picture that Howard Geiger showed. Wally Shook was the secretary and the treasurer. Harold Kazar was our mechanic. And Claude Pearson, Earl Schaefer, myself, and some others I can't... Oh yes, Charlie Van Nostrand. He was the Cincinnati policeman, also flew. We had some great times flying those planes. The club finally sold the Waco because it was too large, rather expensive to operate, and we bought 2 Piper Cubs, a J2 with the tail skid and then a J3 with the wheel on. And we had many great times flying those planes. The Western Hills Early Bird Flyers contributed a lot to the war effort, and after, practically all of us did some type of flying during the war years and after. Howard Geiger, of course, when he left the Navy in Pearl Harbor, he flew with Hawaiian Airlines. And myself, I was a pilot in the Air Force, and I also had a glider pilot rating as well as a pilot rating. So that brought back pleasant memories of the Albatross Birdmen. As we said, they originally started out flying gliders. Wally Shook was an Air Force pilot, flew B-24s during the war. Earl Schaefer was a Navy pilot. Jim Steele was another Albatross Birdman, and he was a flying instructor for the Air Force during the war. I had a lot of great times, a lot of fun flying for the Air Force, but I never forgot the Western Hills days. The Air Force pilots commonly landed in the first third of the runway, but from my Western Hills habit, I always used to land in the first 10 feet of the runway, even though the runways were quite large. Eddie Costello and Slim Kaiser owned a Ronca, I think it was a Ronca or maybe a Cub. It was painted a bright red, I remember. And one time they tore that whole plane apart. It had the wings stacked in one corner of the airport and so forth. And after they completely reassembled it, they wanted me to test fly it. Since we never used parachutes at Western Hills, I was a little skeptical, so I asked Eddie. I said, Eddie, you got enough confidence in your workmanship to fly with me when I test fly? He said, oh yes. He assured me everything was fine, so the 2 of us went up. And Eddie made some comment about you couldn't loop a Piper Cub. And I replied, Eddie, you can loop anything that flies. So I proceeded to show Eddie how to do a loop, and then he asked me to teach him how, so I followed him through several loops. Then we landed. I get in the club airplane, the Albatross airplane, the J3 Cub. I went out flying, and Eddie took off in the little red Aranca. I later flew back near the airport toward the Ohio River, and there I saw Eddie in that little red airplane doing one loop after another. I lost track of how many he did, but he certainly knew after that experience that you could loop an Aeronca. I had some great times flying in the Air Force. Most of my flying was done in C-47s. I also flew several other planes, gliders as I mentioned, flew some B-25s, but mainly it was C-47s, and then we graduated to the flying boxcar. That was a C-82. Flying is a real love, and I think all pilots seem to have it, at least the ones I know. Once the flying bug bites you, you never recover. And I don't believe I ever known any serious pilot that ever wanted to recover from that love of flying. And I'm sure this certainly applies to all of you early birdmen from Western Hills. If one thing I remember, we all had the love of flying in our hearts at Western Hills, and I'm sure it has never left us. It certainly has never left me after all these years. I remember the time you checked me out in that Taylorcraft of yours. That was the first time I flew an airplane with a steering wheel in it. Of course, I've flown many others since that time, but I never forgot the time you checked me out in your Taylorcraft. It was a lot of fun. I always wanted to check out in that famous Waco biplane of yours, which appears earlier in this film. However, World War II intervened, and I didn't get to do that. It would have been a real thrill flying that famous airplane of yours. However, times are long gone, and it'd be impossible for me to ever do that now, I guess. But I'll never forget that plane. I saw you fly it many times out there. I saw you work on it more times than I saw you. We used to crank our own props at Western Hills. I don't believe any of those planes had starters, so we all had to crank our own props or else have somebody do it for us. That's my brother Paul Schultz cranking the prop of the Albatross J3 Cub. Paul later became a Pan American Airways pilot. That's another picture of me standing in front of the Albatross J3 Cub. As you can see, I was a lot younger, also a lot thinner in that picture. I weighed 144 pounds. The picture of me flying a Stearman PT-13. That was the plane the Air Force used for primary training. It was a real thrill flying that plane, as it was capable of doing about any acrobatic possible, and I certainly got my fill of acrobatic flying in that plane. As you know, regardless of your previous flying experience, the Air Force starts you right from scratch as if you've never been in a plane, even including an indoctrination ride. On my first trip, the instructor decided to let me hold the stick, so I was flying along straight and level. Then he had me make a turn to the left. And after I made the turn, he said, "You've flown before, haven't you?" I replied, "Yes, I have a few hours." He said, "You have more than a few." I said, "Well, yes, I have a private pilot's license." I let it go at that. I then asked him how he could tell I was a pilot. He said, "By the way you made that turn, when you looked at the wing." I asked him, "Doesn't everybody look at the wing when they make a turn?" He said, "No, only pilots." "What do the other ones do?" I asked him. He said, "They just look straight ahead and turn like they're driving a truck or something." That's my sister Rita. She was a girl about 12 years old, and I took her for her first ride at Western Hills Airport. It was a very poor flying condition. We really shouldn't have been flying, and I got lost. Or rather, as Daniel Boone said, I wasn't exactly lost, but I was mighty confused for a couple of hours. Fortunately, I had a full tank of gas, and I eventually found my way back to the Western Hills Airport. Unfortunately, they had cleaned the plane the day before and hadn't put the maps in the glove compartment of the Cub, so I had to fly the concrete beam back to the airport. Geiger was our fearless leader at Western Hills Airport. He was the airport manager and did an excellent job of running it. He certainly knew how to manage a bunch of unruly Western Hills pilots. He never asked us to do very much, and that's about what we did. He seldom, if ever, gave us a direct order, but relied on us to do the right thing. And of course, we always did the right thing. However, we defined the right thing rather loosely. For example, I think every one of us has made at least one pylon turn around that beacon. The old Emil Graf used to do it regularly. I think every time he concluded a flight, he did a pylon turn around that air beacon, the air beacon at the Western Hills Airport. Also, we used to define the weather minimums rather loosely. I can remember sometimes when the ceiling was almost zero, we would shoot landings at Western Hills. If it was a little higher than that, we might venture further. But I don't remember hardly any time when we didn't consider the weather good enough to shoot landings.